That morning, a
Shh,
black
don't
carriage
cry.
stopped on
I
Wycliffe
was so
Street. The
scared.
horses were
I'm here
midnight
now.
dark.
Stay
The
with
carriage bore no crest, no marking. But everyone on that street knew who had arrived. The man who stepped down wore a coat of deep charcoal. His boots struck the cobblestones with quiet precision. He was tall. His hair was dark, touched with silver at the temples. His face was the kind that made women look twice and then look away, unsure whether they had seen beauty or danger. This was Duke Dominic Ravencroft, and this was the third time he had come to this door. Across the street, curtains twitched. An elderly woman clutched her shawl tighter. Two young boys stopped their game to stare. Everyone knew what had happened the first two times. Everyone wondered if today would be different. Dominic walked to the door. He did not hurry. He had lived long enough to know that hurrying changed nothing. He raised his hand. He knocked. The sound echoed down the quiet street. A young footman opened the door. The boy's eyes widened when he saw who stood there. He swallowed hard. "Tell Miss Aldridge that the Duke of Ravencroft is here." The footman nodded. He disappeared inside. Dominic waited. He did not move. He barely seemed to breathe. From the window above, he could feel eyes watching. Not hers, the household staff, the neighbors. London had 1,000 eyes, and all of them watched when a duke came calling. The footman returned. His face was red, his hands twisted together. "Sir, Miss Aldridge says she will not receive you." Dominic did not react. Not a flicker in his eyes, not a tightening of his jaw. He had lived 164 years. He had learned to hide everything. "I understand," he said quietly. He turned. He walked back to the carriage. He climbed inside. The door closed. The carriage pulled away. Behind him, the street erupted in whispers. By evening, half of London would know. By tomorrow, all of it. The Duke of Ravencroft had been refused. Again. For the third time. But what they did not know was this: that third rejection had just broken something inside a man who had not truly felt anything break in over a century. Something had shifted. Something fundamental. And nothing would ever be the same again. This is how it happened. 6 months earlier, spring 1826. London in the season was a tapestry of color and sound. Every evening, carriages lined the streets outside grand houses. Music spilled from ballroom windows. Laughter echoed across manicured gardens. This was the world of the living, and Dominic Ravencroft moved through it like a ghost. He attended every ball. He danced with every woman who caught his eye. He smiled, he charmed. He made them believe for one evening that they were the only person in the room. And then he forgot them. Not cruelly, not deliberately. He simply could not hold on to the feeling. By the next morning, their faces blurred together. Their names became interchangeable. The spark that had drawn him to them faded like mist under sunlight. This had been his existence for 16 decades. He had been turned in his 38th year. A vampire of old blood had seen something in him worth preserving, or perhaps worth cursing. Dominic had never been certain which. The turning had given him immortality, strength, speed, the ability to walk among humans undetected as long as he fed carefully and hid what he was. But it had also hollowed him out. Emotions for Dominic were like colors seen through fog. He could identify them, name them, but he could not truly feel them. Immortality, it seemed, came at the price of truly living. His mother, the Dowager Duchess Octavia, had warned him. But Dominic had not understood until it was too late. Now at 164 years old, he attended balls out of habit. He danced because it was expected. He smiled because it was polite. But inside he was empty. Until the night he saw her. The Hartley Ball was in full swing when Dominic arrived. The ballroom glittered with candlelight. Women in silk gowns swirled across the floor. Men in dark coats stood in clusters discussing politics and horses and the latest scandals. Dominic moved through the crowd with practiced ease. He greeted acquaintances. He accepted a glass of champagne. He scanned the room with eyes that had seen the same scene 1,000 times before. And then he stopped. In the corner near the tall windows overlooking the garden stood a woman who was not dancing. She was young, perhaps 24 or 25. Her dress was simple compared to the elaborate gowns around her. Dark blue, well-made, but clearly not new. Her hair was pinned up in a style that was elegant, but understated. But it was not her appearance that caught his attention. It was the way she stood. Every other woman in that ballroom was performing, smiling, laughing, angling for attention, hoping to be seen. This woman was not performing, she was simply there. Her gaze was turned toward the window. She held a glass of lemonade but did not drink from it. She seemed entirely uninterested in the spectacle around her. Dominic felt something stir. It was faint, so faint he almost dismissed it, but it was there. Curiosity. He had not felt curious about anything in years. He set down his champagne. He crossed the ballroom. He stopped beside her. "You are not dancing," he said. She turned her head, looked at him. Her eyes were gray, the color of winter sky. For a moment she said nothing. "No," she said finally, "I am not." That was all. No smile, no flutter of eyelashes, no attempt to engage him in conversation. Dominic was intrigued. "May I ask why not?" She studied him for a long moment. He had the distinct impression she was deciding whether he was worth her time. "I do not particularly enjoy dancing," she said. "Then why attend a ball?" "A friend invited me." It seemed rude to refuse. Her tone was polite but distant, as if she were answering questions from a stranger she had no interest in knowing better, which of course was exactly what he was. "I see," Dominic said. He should have walked away. This woman clearly did not want his company, but something kept him rooted to the spot. "Do you know who I am?" he asked. It was a foolish question. Everyone in London knew who he was. She met his eyes directly. "Yes. And yet you seem remarkably unimpressed." For the first time, the corner of her mouth lifted. Not quite a smile, but close. "Should I be impressed?" Dominic felt it again. That flicker of something, stronger this time. He had attended 1,000 balls, spoken to 1,000 women, and not one of them had ever asked him that question. "Most people are," he said honestly. "I am not most people." No, she certainly was not. "May I have your name?" he asked. She hesitated. Then, as if deciding it cost her nothing, she answered, "Genevieve Aldridge." Aldridge, the name was familiar. He searched his memory. Yes, a family that had once been respectable, comfortable if not wealthy. But something had happened. A scandal. A financial collapse. "It is a pleasure to meet you, Miss Aldridge." She inclined her head slightly, but she did not return the pleasantry. Across the room, Dominic saw a woman approaching. Older than Genevieve, but not by much. She had kind eyes and a warm smile. "Genevieve, there you are," the woman said. She glanced at Dominic and recognition flickered across her face. "Your Grace." Dominic bowed. "Madam." Genevieve turned to the woman. "Marguerite, this is the Duke of Ravencroft. Your Grace, this is Mrs. Marguerite Fairfax." Marguerite's smile widened. "A pleasure, Your Grace. I hope Genevieve has not been too standoffish. She is not accustomed to balls anymore." "On the contrary," Dominic said smoothly. "Miss Aldridge has been excellent company." Genevieve gave him a look that suggested she knew he was lying. Marguerite glanced between them. "Well, I shall leave you to your conversation. Genevieve, do not hide in the corner all evening. At least take a turn about the room." She departed. Dominic and Genevieve stood in silence. "Your friend seems kind," Dominic said. "She is. And she is concerned about you." "She worries too much." Dominic took a risk. "Why are you not accustomed to balls anymore?" Genevieve's expression did not change, but something in her eyes shifted, became colder. "That is not a subject I discuss with strangers." "Of course, forgive me." She looked away. Dominic knew he should leave, but he did not want to. Instead, he said, "Would you walk with me just around the room? Your friend will be pleased." Genevieve looked at him for a long moment. He could see her weighing the request, calculating whether it was worth the effort. Finally, she set down her lemonade. "Very well, one turn." They walked, slowly, around the perimeter of the ballroom. They did not speak. Dominic was acutely aware of her beside him, the way she moved, the straightness of her posture, the quiet dignity in every step. When they returned to the corner, she stopped. "Thank you for the walk, Your Grace." It was a dismissal. Dominic should have accepted it, should have bowed and walked away. But instead, he said, "May I call on you?" Genevieve blinked. Surprise flashed across her face, quickly hidden. "Why?" The question was blunt, honest, and it demanded an honest answer. "Because I find you interesting. You do not know me." "I would like to." Genevieve shook her head slowly. "No, I do not think that would be fine." "Why not?" She met his eyes, and in her gaze he saw something he had not expected. Pity. "Because, Your Grace, I know who you are. Not just your title. I know your reputation. Every woman in London knows it. You are charming, you are handsome, you make women believe they are special, and then you disappear." Dominic felt those words like a blow, not because they were cruel, but because they were true. "I have never lied to anyone," he said quietly. "Perhaps not, but you have hurt people nonetheless. And you believe I would hurt you." I believe you would try not to, but in the end, yes, you would. She said it without malice, simply as fact. Dominic stood very still. He did not know what to say. Genevieve gave him a small, sad smile. Enjoy the rest of your evening, Your Grace. She turned and walked away. Dominic watched her go, and for the first time in over a century, he felt something crack inside his chest. It was faint, barely there, but it was real. Pain. Dominic did not sleep that night. He stood in his study staring out at the dark London streets. He replayed the conversation in his mind over and over. She had dismissed him, not out of fear or shyness or coy manipulation. She had simply seen through him, seen the emptiness at his core, and decided he was not worth her time. And that rejection had hurt. It should not have. He had been rejected before, countless times in countless ways. But those rejections had felt distant, theoretical, like reading about pain in a book. This was different. This was real. Dominic pressed his hand to his chest. His heart still beat, though slower than a human's. He could feel it now, each beat, each pause. He could feel. He went to his desk, pulled out a ledger, and began to investigate. By morning, he knew everything there was to know about Genevieve Aldridge. Her father, Thomas Aldridge, had been a gentleman of moderate means. Not wealthy, but comfortable, respectable. The family had attended the right events, moved in the right circles. Then 3 years ago, Thomas had developed a gambling habit. At first, small bets, cards with friends, nothing alarming. But the habit grew, the bets became larger, the losses mounted. Within 2 years, he had lost everything. The family home, the investments, the standing in society. A year ago, Thomas Aldridge had died. The official cause was recorded as heart failure. But the whispers said he had taken his own life, unable to bear the shame. Genevieve at 21 had been left with nothing. No money, no family support, no prospects. Most women in her position would have found a distant relative to take them in, or accepted a marriage of convenience to an older man willing to overlook the scandal. Genevieve had done neither. She had moved into a small house in a quiet part of London. She had taken a position as a private tutor to the children of wealthy families. She taught literature, French, piano. She earned her own living. She asked for no one's pity. She attended no balls, accepted no invitations. Until Marguerite Fairfax, an old friend from before the fall, had insisted she come to the Hartley ball. Dominic sat back in his chair. He stared at the notes he had written. This woman had lost everything, and instead of breaking, she had rebuilt. Alone. He thought of her standing in that ballroom, not hiding but simply apart, watching the world she had once belonged to with no bitterness, no longing, just quiet acceptance. And he thought of her words to him. You do not know what love is. You only know wanting. And when you have what you want, you will leave. She was right. But for the first time in 164 years, Dominic wanted to prove someone wrong. He did not go to her immediately. He knew that would be a mistake. She had made her feelings clear. If he appeared at her door the next day, she would see it as exactly what she had accused him of. A man who wanted something and pursued it without thought. So he waited. 2 weeks passed. During that time, Dominic made inquiries. Discreet ones. He learned which families employed Genevieve as a tutor. He learned her schedule, where she shopped, where she walked. He did not approach her. He simply learned. And then he acted. Through a series of careful intermediaries, Dominic arranged for her father's remaining creditors to receive payment. He ensured 2 additional wealthy families sought her services as a tutor. He did it all without leaving any trace back to himself. And then finally, 2 weeks after the ball, he went to her. It was a Tuesday afternoon. He knocked on the door of her small house. The same young footman answered. Tell Miss Aldridge that the Duke of Ravenscroft would like to speak with her. The footman's eyes widened. He nodded and disappeared. 5 minutes later, he returned. Miss Aldridge will see you, Your Grace. Dominic was led into a small sitting room. It was simply furnished, a few chairs, a table, books stacked neatly on a shelf, student notebooks on the desk. Everything was clean, ordered. There was a dignity to the space despite its modesty. Genevieve entered. She wore a plain dress. Her hair was pinned back. She looked tired. Your Grace, she said. Her tone was polite but wary. Dominic stood. Miss Aldridge, thank you for seeing me. I confess I am surprised you came. I wanted to speak with you. Why, always that question. Why, Dominic had rehearsed this conversation a dozen times in his mind. He had prepared elegant words, persuasive arguments. But standing here in this simple room with this woman looking at him with those clear gray eyes, all his preparation fled. Because I cannot stop thinking about you, he said. It was the truth, and it surprised him as much as it seemed to surprise her. Genevieve's expression did not soften. Your Grace, I told you. I know what you told me, and you were right. I do not know what love is. I have lived a long life, and I have never felt it. But when I met you, something changed. Changed how? I felt something. For the first time in many years, I felt something real. Genevieve studied him. And what do you want from me? A chance. To do what? To prove that I am capable of more than you believe. Genevieve shook her head slowly. I do not need you to prove anything, Your Grace. I am not a prize to be won. I am not a challenge to be conquered. I do not see you that way. Then how do you see me? Dominic hesitated. How did he see her? I see a woman who has endured more than most and emerged stronger. I see someone who does not need anyone but chooses her own path. I see someone I want to know, truly know. Genevieve's expression remained guarded, but something in her eyes flickered. Uncertainty, perhaps. Your Grace, I appreciate your honesty, but my answer is still no. Why? Because you do not know what you are asking. You do not know me. We spoke for a few minutes at a ball. That is not enough foundation for anything. Then let me get to know you. And when you do, when the novelty fades, what then? You will leave, just as you have left every other woman you have pursued. Dominic wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, but he could not, because he did not know if she was wrong. He had never stayed before. He had never wanted to stay, but he wanted to now. People can change, he said quietly. Can they? Genevieve's voice was gentle but firm. Or do they only believe they can until tested? Dominic had no answer. Genevieve stepped toward the door. I think it is time for you to leave, Your Grace. Dominic stood. He bowed. Thank you for seeing me. As he walked to the door, Genevieve spoke again. Your Grace, he turned. If you truly wish to prove you are different, do not come back. Do not pursue me. Do not send gifts or letters. Simply let me be. Her words were kind, but they struck him like a blade. And if I do that, he asked, then perhaps I will believe you care more about my peace than your own desires. Dominic held her gaze. Then he nodded. As you wish, Miss Aldridge. He left, and as he climbed into his carriage, he felt that strange pain again. Sharper this time. This was rejection. Real rejection. And it hurt. Dominic did not go back, but he did not forget her. Instead, he did something he had never done before. He waited. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. During that time, he continued to help her quietly. Her income improved. The debts disappeared, but he never let her know, and he never returned to her door. But he thought of her every day, every night. He attended balls as always, danced with women as always. But now the fog had lifted. He could feel the emptiness of it, the hollowness. Before Genevieve, he had not known what he was missing. Now he did, and it ached. His mother noticed. One evening, as Dominic sat in his study staring at papers he was not reading, the Dowager Duchess Octavia entered. She was a striking woman, elegant, poised, ancient in ways that had nothing to do with physical age. You have been different these past months, she said. Dominic looked up. Have I? Do not play coy with me, Dominic. I have known you since you were born. Something has changed. Dominic set down his papers. He leaned back in his chair. I met someone. Octavia's eyebrows rose. Oh, a woman, Miss Genevieve Aldridge. Aldridge, Octavia frowned. The family that fell on hard times. Yes. And you pursued her. I tried. And she refused me. Octavia was silent for a moment. Then to Dominic's surprise, she smiled. Good for her. Dominic blinked. Good for her. Yes, it is about time someone saw through your charm and said no. Dominic felt a flicker of irritation. You are my mother. You are supposed to be on my side. Octavia's smile faded. She came and sat across from him. Her expression grew serious. I am on your side, Dominic, which is why I am glad she refused you. Why? Because for the first time you are feeling something real. Rejection, pain, longing. These are human emotions, and you have not felt them in decades. Dominic looked away. I do not enjoy them. No one does, but they mean you are waking up. Waking up from what? Octavia reached out and placed her hand over his. Her skin was cool, pale. From the curse of our kind. Vampires live forever, Dominic. But in doing so, we often stop truly living. We become observers, spectators in our own existence. I know. But you are not a spectator anymore. You are feeling, hurting, hoping. That is what it means to be alive. Dominic met his mother's eyes. She will not see me. She told me to leave her alone. Then respect her wishes. I have been for months. Good. But it does not change the fact that I think of her constantly. Octavia squeezed his hand. Then perhaps it is time to show her that you have changed, not through words, through actions. I have been helping her, anonymously. Octavia's smile returned. Then continue, and be patient. If she is meant to be yours, she will see, in time. And if she is not, Octavia's expression grew sad. Then you will have learned what it means to love someone enough to let them go. Dominic absorbed those words. They settled into him like stones. His mother stood. Do not give up, Dominic, but do not force it either. True love cannot be rushed or demanded. She left. Dominic sat alone in the dark, and for the first time in over a century he prayed. He did not know who he was praying to. God, perhaps. The universe. Fate. He prayed that Genevieve would see him, not as the Duke, not as the charming rake, but as the man he was trying to become. The man who, for the first time in 164 years, wanted something more than a fleeting distraction. He wanted her. Over the next 4 months, Marguerite Fairfax hosted a series of small dinners at her home. Intimate affairs, only 6 guests, and always Genevieve and Dominic were among them. Dominic had not asked for the invitations. He suspected his mother had spoken to Marguerite, but he accepted them gratefully. At the first dinner, Genevieve stiffened when she saw him, but that evening Dominic did not give her special attention. He spoke with everyone at the table equally. He asked the scholar about his work, complimented the married woman on her insights into literature, listened to the elderly gentleman's stories with genuine interest, and when Genevieve spoke, he listened. But he did not react as if her words were more important than anyone else's. He treated her as an equal, not as a prize, Genevieve noticed. He could see it in the way she watched him, cautiously at first, then with something that might have been curiosity. At the second dinner, she was more at ease. A topic came up at the table: literature. Genevieve shared a thought. Dominic listened carefully and responded. He had clearly thought about his answer. Genevieve noticed that too. At the third dinner, the conversation turned to books. Genevieve mentioned her father's library, how she had spent hours there as a child, how when the house was sold, the thing that hurt most was losing the books. Dominic listened. He asked quiet questions. He did not offer solutions or platitudes. He simply listened. As the evening ended, Genevieve lingered. The other guests had departed. She stood in the hallway with Dominic. You have been different, she said quietly. Different, how tongue. Patient, respectful. You have not pressured me. You have not tried to win me with grand gestures. You asked me not to. Most men would not have listened. Dominic met her eyes. I am trying to be the kind of man who listens. Genevieve's expression was unreadable, but her voice was softer when she spoke. I have discovered something recently. What is that? Someone has been helping me, anonymously. Debts paid, new students referred. I cannot prove who it was, but I have my suspicions. Dominic's heart beat faster. He said nothing. If it was you, Genevieve continued, I want you to know that I am grateful, but also troubled. Why troubled? Because I do not know if you did it because you care about me or because you hoped it would change my mind. Dominic considered his answer carefully. I did it because I wanted you to be free of burdens, whether you ever spoke to me again or not. Genevieve searched his face. Do you mean that? Yes. She was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded. Thank you. She turned to leave, then stopped. Looked back. There is a tea room on Cartwright Street. If you wish, we could meet there to talk. Dominic felt something surge in his chest. Hope. I would like that. Thursday, 2 o'clock. I will be there. Genevieve left. Dominic stood in the hallway alone, and he smiled. Thursday came. Dominic arrived at the tea room at precisely 2 o'clock. Genevieve was already there, seated at a small table by the window. He joined her. They ordered tea. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Genevieve said, I have been thinking about what you said, that people can change. And man, I think you are trying. I see it. In the way you have been these past months, you have been patient, kind. You have not pushed. I am trying to be worthy of your time. Genevieve's smile was small but real. You are succeeding. They talked for an hour. About books, about London, about Genevieve's students, about Dominic's estates. It was easy, natural, as if they had known each other far longer than they had. When the tea was finished, neither wanted to leave. But they stood. Outside, Dominic walked Genevieve partway home. As they neared her street, he stopped. "There is something I need to tell you." Genevieve looked at him, waiting. Dominic took a breath. This was the moment, the risk. "I am not entirely human." Genevieve blinked. "I beg your pardon. I am a vampire." He watched her face, waiting for shock, fear, disgust. Instead, Genevieve was quiet. Then she said, "I know." Now it was Dominic's turn to be shocked. "You know, Carl, Marguerite told me, months ago, before the first dinner. And you still agreed to meet me." "Yes." "Why?" Genevieve's gaze was steady. "Because being a vampire does not make you cruel. Your actions do. And your actions these past months have been kind." Dominic felt something unfamiliar. Relief. Gratitude. "I wanted you to know," he said, "because if we are to continue speaking, I do not want secrets between us." "Are there other secrets?" "I am 164 years old." Genevieve's eyes widened, just slightly. "That is considerably older than I expected. Does it change things?" She considered. "I do not know yet." Dominic nodded. "That is fair." They resumed walking. When they reached her door, Genevieve turned. "Thank you for telling me. Thank you for not running away." Genevieve's smile was wry. "The day is still young." But she did not run. She simply went inside, and Dominic returned to his carriage, feeling lighter than he had in decades. Over the next few weeks, they met several more times. For tea, for walks, for quiet conversations. And slowly Genevieve began to trust him. She smiled more freely, laughed at his stories, shared pieces of her past, and Dominic felt something growing inside him, something he had thought himself incapable of. Love. Real love. Not the shallow attraction that had defined his existence, but something deep, permanent, unshakable. He loved the way she stood her ground, the way she challenged him, the way she saw through pretense to the truth beneath. He loved her strength, her independence, her refusal to need anyone, and he loved that she was choosing slowly to let him in. But there was one problem. The more he loved her, the more aware he became of the gulf between them. He was immortal. She was not. He would live for centuries more. She would have at most 60 or 70 years. If she married him, she would grow old, gray, fragile, and he would remain as he was, unchanging. He would watch her die, and then continue living. The thought terrified him. 6 months after they first met, Dominic called on Genevieve again. This time she invited him into her sitting room. They spoke for 2 hours. At the end of the visit, Dominic stood. He hesitated. Then he spoke. "Miss Aldridge, I know it has not been long, but I cannot wait any longer to ask." Genevieve looked at him, her expression guarded. "Would you consider marrying me?" The room went silent. Genevieve stared at him. Then she shook her head, slowly. "No." Dominic felt the word like a physical blow, but he kept his voice steady. "May I ask why?" Genevieve stood. She crossed her arms, not defensively, but as if holding herself together. "Because, Your Grace, you are 164 years old. You have lived lifetimes. You have seen empires rise and fall. You have courted countless women. And I am asking you, for now. But how do I know I am not simply the newest novelty? The first woman who challenged you. The first one who said no. What happens when I say yes? When the challenge is gone? I would never, you cannot know that. You said yourself you have never felt deeply, not in all your years. And now, after a few months, you believe you feel something real for me." Dominic wanted to argue, to insist, but her words held truth. "You are right," he said quietly. "I cannot prove what I feel, not in words." "Then do not ask me to marry you. Not yet." "What would you have me do?" Genevieve met his eyes. "Show me, not through anonymous gifts, not through patience that might simply be strategy. Show me that what you feel is real, that it will last." "How do I do not know, but asking me to marry you after so little time, when you have never truly loved anyone, is not the answer." Dominic absorbed her words. The rejection stung, but beneath the sting he felt something else, respect. She was not playing games. She was not testing him for sport. She was protecting herself from the very real possibility that he would hurt her. "I understand," he said. Do you, yes, and I will do as you ask. I will show you. Genevieve's expression softened, just slightly. Thank you. Dominic bowed and left. But as he climbed into his carriage, he did not feel defeated. He felt determined. This woman was worth fighting for, worth waiting for. And for the first time in 164 years, Dominic Ravencroft was willing to fight a battle that had no guarantee of victory, because she was worth the risk. Another 4 months passed. During that time, Dominic continued to see Genevieve. Not every day, not even every week, but regularly. He did not pressure her, did not mention marriage again. But he showed up, consistently, patiently. He listened when she spoke about her students. He remembered the small details, her favorite tea, the book she was reading, the music she loved. He attended events where she was present, but he did not monopolize her time. He allowed her space, friendships with others. And as spring turned to summer, Genevieve began to trust him more deeply. One evening as they walked through a quiet park, Genevieve asked him what was wrong. "You have been quiet," she said. Dominic looked at her, at the woman he loved, and he told her the truth. "I am afraid." "Of what? Of losing you." Genevieve stopped walking. "You do not have me yet." "I know, but if I did, I would still lose you, eventually." Understanding dawned in her eyes. "Because I am mortal." "Yes." Genevieve was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "That is the nature of being human, Your Grace. We are all mortal. We all die. But I will not. I will watch you age, watch you weaken, and then I will watch you die, and I will go on, for centuries." Genevieve reached out, took his hand. It was the first time she had touched him willingly. "That is a burden you would choose to carry." "If it meant having you, yes." Genevieve's eyes were sad. "And what of me? What if I do not wish to be a burden you carry? What if I do not want to be a fleeting moment in your eternal life?" Dominic tightened his grip on her hand. "You would not be fleeting. You would be everything." "How can you know that?" "Because I have lived 164 years, and I have never felt anything like this. If I lose you, I will not simply continue on as before. I will be less, forever." Genevieve's expression was torn, pained. "Your Grace." "Dominic, please, call me Dominic." "Dominic," she said his name softly. "I do not doubt your sincerity. I see what you feel. I believe you." "Then what is the problem?" "The problem is that I am afraid too." "Of what?" "Of being loved so intensely by someone who will outlive me by centuries. Of knowing that my entire life is just a small chapter in yours. Of growing old while you remain young. Of dying and leaving you behind." Dominic pulled her closer. "If I could give you immortality, I would. I do not want immortality. I want a human life, with human joys and human sorrows, and a human end. Then let me share that life with you, however long or short it may be." Genevieve looked up at him. Tears shone in her eyes. "You are asking me to choose between my fear and my heart. I am asking you to choose what you want, not what you think you should want." Genevieve pulled her hand away. She stepped back. "I need time." "How much time?" "I do not know." Dominic wanted to argue, to press, to demand an answer, but he had learned. Patience, respect, trust. "Take all the time you need," he said. Genevieve nodded. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Thank you." She turned and walked away. Dominic stood alone in the park, and he wondered if he had just lost her. 2 weeks later, Dominic received a note. It was brief, written in Genevieve's elegant hand. "I am ready to speak. Please come tomorrow at 3. Dominic read the note a dozen times. He did not sleep that night. The next day at precisely 3 o'clock, he knocked on Genevieve's door. The footman let him in. Genevieve was waiting in the sitting room. She looked pale, nervous. Dominic sat across from her. He said nothing, waiting. Genevieve took a breath. "I have thought a great deal about what you said. And I have realized something. My fear is not about you, it is about myself." "What do you mean?" "I am afraid of not being enough, of loving you and knowing that I will only be a small part of your long life, that you will have centuries after me, that I will fade in your memory." Dominic leaned forward. "You could never fade. You cannot promise that." "I can, because I know myself now in a way I never have before. Loving you has changed me. I feel things I never thought possible. And if I lose you, those feelings will not disappear. They will remain, a permanent part of who I am." Genevieve's eyes glistened, "And that is supposed to comfort me in knowing you will carry the pain of my death forever." It comforts me because it means you will always matter, always. Genevieve looked away. This is not fair. What is not fair? That I have fallen in love with you despite every rational reason not to. Dominic's heart stopped. You love me. Genevieve met his eyes. Yes, I love you, and I hate it, because loving you means accepting that our time together will be brief, that I will grow old and you will not, that I will die and you will go on. Then let us make the most of the time we have. Is that enough for you 60 years, if we are fortunate? Maybe less. Dominic stood. He crossed to her. He knelt before her chair, took her hands in his. Genevieve, I have lived 164 years, most of it empty, hollow, a half-life. These past months with you have been more real than all those years combined. If I have 60 years with you, or 40 or even 20, it will be worth more than 1,000 years without you. Genevieve's tears spilled over. You do not know that. I do, because for the first time in my existence, I am truly alive, and that is because of you. Genevieve pulled her hands away. She stood. She walked to the window. I believe you, she said quietly. I believe you mean every word, but there is something you have not considered. What? She turned, looked at him. What happens when I am 39 and you still look 38? When I am 50 and you look the same? When I am old and frail and you are still young and strong? I will love you the same. Will you? Or will you resent the choice you made? Will you look at me and see everything you sacrificed? Never. You cannot know that. Dominic stood. He crossed to her. He looked into her eyes. You are right, I cannot know the future. I cannot promise there will be no pain, no challenges, no regrets. But I can promise this, I will choose you. Every day. For as long as you live. And after you are gone, I will honor your memory. I will not forget. I will not diminish what we had. I will carry you with me. Forever. Genevieve closed her eyes, tears streamed down her face. That is a terrible burden. It is a burden I accept gladly. Genevieve opened her eyes. And what if I cannot accept it? What if the thought of you watching me die is too much to bear? Dominic felt his heart breaking, but he kept his voice steady. Then I will respect your choice. I will walk away, and I will live the rest of my existence knowing I found true love and could not have it. Genevieve stared at him. You would do that? Yes. Why because I love you, and love means putting your peace above my desires. Genevieve's face crumpled. She covered her mouth with her hand. Dominic waited. Every second felt like an eternity. Finally, Genevieve lowered her hand. Her voice was broken, but clear. I cannot marry you. The words struck him like a dagger. Genevieve, I cannot, not because I do not love you, but because I do. I love you too much to watch you carry the weight of my mortality. I love you too much to tie you to a life that will end while yours continues. It is not fair to you. It is not fair to me. Let me make that choice. No, because you would make it out of love, and love is not always enough. Dominic stood frozen. He had prepared himself for many things, but not this, not the woman he loved rejecting him because she loved him too much. Is there nothing I can say, he asked. Genevieve shook her head. Tears continued to fall. No, my answer is no, and it has to be. Dominic felt something inside him shatter, but he did not let it show. He bowed. I understand. He turned to leave. At the door, Genevieve's voice stopped him. Dominic, he turned. She was standing in the center of the room, small, fragile, beautiful. I will love you for the rest of my life, even if we are not together. Please know that. Dominic's throat tightened. He could not speak. He simply nodded, and he left. As Dominic climbed into his carriage, he felt the pain crash over him. Not the faint echo he had felt before, but real searing, unbearable pain. This was heartbreak. And for the first time in 164 years, Dominic Ravencroft understood what it meant to lose something that truly mattered. He had been rejected 3 times, and the 3rd time had broken him completely. 3 months passed. During those 3 months, no one in London saw the Duke of Ravencroft. His carriage did not appear at balls. His name vanished from guest lists. When hostesses sent invitations to his estate, they received polite refusals from his steward. The Duke was indisposed. The Duke was away on business. The Duke sent his regrets. London, of course, noticed. London always noticed when a Duke disappeared. Rumors spread like wildfire through drawing rooms and afternoon teas. Was he ill? Had some scandal driven him into hiding? Or had the notorious rake finally tired of society altogether? No one knew the truth. No one except the man himself. Dominic Ravencroft sat alone in his study. The curtains were drawn, no candles were lit, only the faint glow of the fire illuminated the room. He had not left his estate in 12 weeks. He had not attended a single event. He had barely left this room. His steward managed the household. His mother sent concerned letters. His few remaining friends knocked on his door and were turned away. Dominic wanted no company, no distractions, no escape from what he was feeling, because for the first time in 164 years, he was drowning in emotion. The curse that had kept him numb for over a century was breaking, and the breaking was agony. Every feeling he had suppressed, every emotion he had been incapable of experiencing came flooding back, all at once, without mercy. Grief for the decades wasted, regret for the women he had hurt, shame for the emptiness he had called a life. And beneath it all, like a knife lodged in his chest, was the pain of losing Genevieve. He had tried to tell himself that time would dull it, that the sharpness would fade, that he would return to the comfortable numbness he had known before. But it did not fade. It grew worse. Every morning he woke and remembered her voice, her gray eyes, the way she had looked at him when she said she loved him, and the way she had looked at him when she said no. Dominic stared into the fire. He had not fed properly in weeks. His body did not need food the way humans did, but blood kept him strong, kept him sharp. Without it, he was weakening, fading. He did not care. What was strength when the only thing he wanted was beyond his reach? A knock came at the door. Dominic did not respond. The door opened anyway. His mother, the Dowager Duchess. Octavia stepped inside. She wore a dress of deep burgundy. Her pale face was calm, but her eyes were sharp with concern. Dominic, he did not look at her. I told the staff I was not receiving visitors. I am not a visitor. I am your mother. Octavia crossed the room. She stood beside his chair, looking down at him. You look terrible. Thank you. When did you last feed? I do not remember. That is unacceptable. You are a vampire, Dominic. You cannot survive without blood. I am surviving. Barely. Octavia moved to the side table. She poured a glass of water from the pitcher and brought it to him. Drink this, at least hydrate. Dominic took the glass but did not drink. He simply held it. Octavia sat in the chair across from him. She studied his face, the hollowness in his cheeks, the shadows under his eyes, the haunted look that had taken up residence there. Tell me what happened, she said gently. Dominic's grip tightened on the glass. You know what happened. I know you proposed. I know she refused. But I do not know what you have been doing locked in this room for 3 months. Feeling. The word came out bitter, raw. Octavia's expression softened. Ah, the curse is breaking. Everything I could not feel before is coming back. All at once, that is good. Dominic laughed. It was a harsh sound. Good. This is torture. Yes, but it is also proof that you are alive. I do not want to be alive, not like this. Octavia leaned forward. Her voice was firm. Stop this. You are not a child. You are 164 years old. You have lived through wars and plagues and the fall of kings. You will survive a broken heart. Will I? Dominic finally looked at her. His eyes were red-rimmed, desperate. Because it does not feel like I will. It feels like I am dying. Octavia's expression cracked, just slightly. She reached out and took his hand. You are not dying. You are waking up. And waking up hurts. I do not want it. Too late. You cannot go back to numbness now. The curse is breaking. You are becoming capable of true feeling, whether you want it or not. Dominic pulled his hand away. He set the glass down. Then I am damned, because the only thing I feel is pain, and I cannot have the one thing that would ease it. Octavia was silent for a moment. Then she said quietly, Tell me about her. Why? Because I want to understand. What is it about this woman that has undone you so completely? Dominic stared into the fire. For a long time he said nothing. Then slowly he began to speak. She sees me, not the Duke, not the vampire, me. She looks past everything else and sees the emptiness I have been carrying. And instead of being afraid of it, she challenges me to fill it. And you love her for that. I love her for 1,000 reasons. The way she stands alone but never seems lonely. The way she refuses to need anyone. The way she looks at the world with clear eyes and accepts it as it is. She sounds remarkable. She is. Then why are you sitting here in the dark instead of fighting for her? Dominic's jaw tightened. Because she does not want me to fight. She asked me to let her go, and I am trying to respect that. Octavia stood. She walked to the window and pulled back the curtain. Pale afternoon light spilled into the room. I need to tell you something, she said. Dominic squinted against the light. What? Octavia turned to face him. Her expression was distant, sad, as if she were looking at something far away. I was human once. Dominic blinked. I know. You were turned when you married father. No, I was turned 3 years after I married him. Dominic sat up straighter. What? Your father and I married when I was 23. He was already a vampire, ancient even then, but I did not know. He hid it from me. How was that possible? He was careful. He fed discreetly. He avoided sunlight. He aged himself slowly through cosmetics and pretense. I lived with him for 3 years before I discovered the truth. Dominic stared at his mother. He had never known this. What did you do? I was terrified. I wanted to run, but by then I loved him. Deeply, completely, and he loved me. So he turned you. No, I asked him to turn me. Dominic's eyes widened. Why, point, Octavia came back to her chair. She sat down slowly, her hands folded in her lap. Because I could not bear the thought of leaving him, of growing old while he stayed young, of dying and abandoning him to eternity alone. So you chose immortality. I chose love. The immortality was simply the price. Dominic absorbed this. His mother had never spoken of her turning before. He had assumed it was a given, a choice made without thought. But it had not been. It had been a sacrifice. Do you regret it? He asked quietly. Octavia smiled. It was a sad smile. Every day. Dominic felt his chest tighten. Why, because I gave up the chance to grow old, to have a natural end, to live a human life. She paused. But I also gained 50 years with the man I loved. Years I would not have had otherwise. 50 years, and then he died. Vampires can die, Dominic. From despair, from heartbreak, from simply losing the will to continue. Your father lived 300 years, but when his time came, he was ready. And I let him go. Dominic's throat constricted. I never knew. I did not speak of it because it was too painful. But I tell you now because you need to hear it. Hear what? Octavia met his eyes. That loving someone mortal does not make the love less real. It makes it more precious. Because you know it will end. Dominic looked away. That is exactly what terrifies me. And it terrified her too. That is why she said no. Then what am I supposed to do? Octavia stood. She crossed to him and placed her hand on his shoulder. You respect her choice. You let her go. And if she is meant to come back to you, she will. In her own time. And if she does not, Octavia's grip tightened, then you will have loved truly, once. And that is more than most people, mortal or immortal, ever experience. She left. Dominic sat alone in the light, and for the first time in 3 months, he felt something other than pain. He felt understanding. While Dominic sat alone in his estate, Genevieve's life continued. She woke each morning, she taught her students. She managed her small household. She attended the occasional dinner at Marguerite's home. To anyone watching, she seemed fine, calm, composed. But Marguerite knew better. One afternoon, as they sat together over tea, Marguerite set down her cup and studied her friend. You are not yourself. Genevieve looked up from the book she was pretending to read. I am perfectly well. You are pretending to be well. There is a difference, however. Genevieve closed the book. She set it aside. What do you want me to say? The truth, you miss him. Genevieve's hands tightened in her lap. That is irrelevant. Is it? Yes, I made my choice. He is respecting it. That is the end of the matter. Marguerite leaned forward. Her eyes were kind but insistent. Genevieve, I have known you since we were girls. I know when you are hurting, and you are hurting now. Genevieve looked away. Of course I am hurting, but pain does not mean I made the wrong choice. Does it mean you made the right one? Genevieve did not answer. Marguerite sighed. He has not been seen in months, you know. He has withdrawn from society completely. Genevieve's head snapped up. What? The Duke. No one has seen him since early summer. He declines every invitation. He does not attend any events. People are beginning to talk. Genevieve's heart clenched. Why are you telling me this? Because you care, and because I think you should know. It does not change anything. Does it not? Genevieve stood. She walked to the window. Outside London moved on. Carriages passed, people walked. Life continued. I cannot go to him, Marguerite. Why not? Because if I do, I will weaken. I will say yes, and then I will spend the rest of my life fearing the day I lose him. Marguerite came to stand beside her. And now, what are you doing now? Living, as best I can. You call this living. You are going through the motions, Genevieve. You are not truly present. You are haunted by a choice you cannot unmake and a man you cannot forget. Genevieve's eyes stung. She blinked hard. What would you have me do? I would have you be honest with yourself. You love him. He loves you. The only thing standing between you is fear. Fear is not a small thing. No, but neither is love. Marguerite squeezed her hand and left. Genevieve stood at the window for a long time, staring at nothing, feeling everything. 2 weeks later, something changed. Genevieve was walking home from a student's house when she saw the carriage. It was black, elegant, and it was parked outside a townhouse 2 streets over. She would not have noticed it at all except for the crest on the door. The Ravencroft crest. Genevieve stopped. Her heart began to race. Was Dominic inside? Had he returned to society? She told herself to keep walking. It was none of her concern. She had made her choice, but her feet did not move. And then the door opened. A woman stepped out. She was beautiful. Dark hair, pale skin, a dress of deep violet. A vampire. Genevieve could tell from the way she moved, the preternatural grace, the stillness. Behind her, a man appeared in the doorway. Tall, dark hair. Even from a distance, Genevieve recognized him. Dominic. Her breath caught. He looked different, thinner, tired. But it was him. The woman said something. Dominic nodded. She reached out and touched his arm. A gesture that seemed intimate, familiar. Then she leaned in and kissed his cheek. Genevieve turned and walked away, quickly. Before they could see her, her mind raced, her heart pounded. Who was that woman? Why was Dominic with her? She told herself it did not matter. She had no claim on him. She had refused him. He was free to see whomever he wished. But the image of that woman's hand on his arm burned in her mind. By evening, the rumor had spread. The Duke of Ravencroft had been seen with Lady Isolde Blackthorne, a vampire widow of considerable beauty and questionable reputation. The whispers said they had been lovers once, years ago, before Isolde's husband had died. Now it seemed they were rekindling their acquaintance. Marguerite heard the rumor and came to Genevieve immediately. Do not believe everything you hear, she said. But Genevieve had already believed it. Because why would Dominic not move on? She had pushed him away. He had every right to seek comfort elsewhere. And yet the thought of him with someone else made her feel as if her chest were splitting open. She realized with dawning horror that she had been lying to herself. She had told herself she was protecting them both, sparing them future pain. But the truth was simpler and more devastating. She loved him. She had always loved him. And the thought of losing him, whether to time or to another woman, was unbearable. But it was too late. She had made her choice, and Dominic had moved on. Genevieve did not know the truth. The truth was that Lady Isolde Blackthorne was dying. Vampires could not die from age or disease, but they could die from despair, from heartbreak, from the simple loss of will to continue. Isolde had lost her husband 5 years ago. He had been ancient, powerful, and when he chose to end his existence, Isolde had been left alone. She had tried to go on, but the weight of eternity without him had become too much. She was fading, slowly, painfully. Dominic had known Isolde for decades. They had never been lovers, despite what London believed, but they had been friends. And when she sent word that she was dying, he went to her. He sat with her in her darkened townhouse. He held her hand. He listened as she spoke of her husband, of the life they had shared, of the eternity she could no longer face. I am ready, she told him. I have lived long enough. Are you certain? Dominic asked gently. Yes, I thought I could go on. But every day without him is agony. I do not want another century. I want to rest. Dominic understood. He had felt that same exhaustion, that same desire to simply stop. Is there anything I can do? He asked. Isolde smiled weakly. You have already done it. By being here. By not telling me I am wrong to feel this way. You are not wrong. Thank you. She closed her eyes. And 3 days later, she was gone. Dominic attended her small private funeral. There were few mourners. Vampires did not grieve the way humans did. Death was seen as a choice, a release, but Dominic grieved because he had lost a friend and because Isolde's death reminded him how fragile existence truly was, even for immortals. He did not know that Genevieve had seen him with Isolde, did not know that London was whispering about a rekindled romance. He was too lost in his own thoughts to care what London said. A week after Isolde's death, Dominic made a decision. He could not go on like this. Locked away, drowning in emotions he did not know how to manage. He needed to leave, to go somewhere far from London, far from Genevieve, far from the life he had known. Perhaps distance would ease the pain. Perhaps time would dull the sharpness. Or perhaps it would not. But he had to try. He began making arrangements, quietly, discreetly. He would travel to the continent, perhaps to Italy or Spain, somewhere warm, somewhere far from English rain and English memories. He would leave his affairs in order, his estates managed, his mother cared for, and he would let Genevieve go, truly, completely, because that was what she wanted. But before he left, he needed to do one more thing. He needed to ensure that Genevieve would be safe, secure, free from the burdens that had weighed on her for so long. So he went to his solicitor, and he made arrangements. Anonymously through intermediaries, he established a modest trust, a fund that would provide for Genevieve's students, that would ensure her small school could continue even if she could not work. He arranged for a small annuity to be delivered to her, not enough to make her dependent, just enough to ease the constant worry. And he did it all without leaving his name attached. She would never know it came from him. When the arrangements were complete, Dominic sat down and wrote a letter, not to Genevieve. He would not burden her with a farewell, but to his mother. Mother, by the time you read this, I will be gone. I am leaving England. I do not know when I will return. You were right about many things. Love is worth the pain. Feeling is better than numbness. And I am grateful to have experienced it even briefly. But I cannot stay. Not when every street reminds me of her. Every evening feels empty without her. Every breath is a reminder of what I cannot have. I need distance, time, perhaps eventually peace. Please do not worry. I am not fading. I am simply leaving. I have arranged for Genevieve to be cared for. She will never know. But she will be safe, secure, free to live her life without the shadows of her father's mistakes. That is my final gift to her, and it is enough. Thank you for teaching me that love does not require possession. That sometimes the greatest act of love is letting go. I will write when I am settled. Your son Dominic. He sealed the letter, left it on his desk for his mother to find, and then he began to pack. He would leave tomorrow night under cover of darkness. No farewells, no grand gestures, just a quiet departure. Boom. The next morning, Octavia found the letter. She read it once, then again. Then she made a decision of her own. She went to Genevieve's house. The young footman tried to stop her. Miss Aldridge is with a student, Your Grace. I will wait. Octavia was not a woman accustomed to being denied. The footman stammered and retreated. 20 minutes later, Genevieve appeared. She looked surprised, wary. Your Grace. Miss Aldridge, we need to speak. Genevieve hesitated, then she nodded. Of course, please come in. They sat in the small sitting room. Octavia did not waste time. My son is leaving England tomorrow. Genevieve's face went pale. What? He is leaving, possibly forever, and you need to know why. I do not understand. Octavia reached into her reticule and pulled out a small leather journal. She set it on the table between them. This is Dominic's private journal. He has been keeping it since the night he met you. Genevieve stared at the journal. Why are you showing me this? Because you need to understand what you are walking away from. I already know, you do not. Octavia's voice was sharp. You think you know, but you are wrong. Read it, please. Genevieve looked at the journal, then at Octavia. He would not want me to. He is leaving because he believes it is what you want, because he loves you enough to let you go. But you deserve to know the truth first. What he has been feeling. What he has been going through. Octavia stood. I will leave this with you. What you do with it is your choice. But know this, Miss Aldridge. My son has lived 164 years. He has known countless people, experienced countless things, and in all that time he has never felt what he feels for you. If you let him leave without understanding that you will regret it for the rest of your life. Octavia left. Genevieve sat alone, staring at the journal. For a long time she did not touch it. Then slowly she reached out, opened the cover, and began to read. The first entry was dated months ago, the night of the Hartley ball. I met a woman tonight, Miss Genevieve Aldridge. She looked at me as if I were no one, as if my title, my charm, my very existence meant nothing. It should have been insulting. Instead, it was intoxicating. For the first time in decades, I felt curious, not attracted, not interested, curious about who she is, about what she sees when she looks at me, about whether I could ever be worthy of that clear, uncompromising gaze. Genevieve's hands trembled. She turned the page. I called on her today. It was too soon. I knew it even as I knocked on her door. But I could not help myself. She refused to see me as anything special. She is right to be wary. I do not know what love is, but I want to learn, and I think she is the only one who could teach me. Genevieve kept reading, entry after entry, weeks, months. Dominic's handwriting was elegant, controlled, but the words were raw. He wrote about his fear, his hope, his growing realization that he was changing. She smiled today. At something I said, it was a small thing, fleeting, but I will carry the memory of it for the rest of my existence. I am beginning to feel again, truly feel. It is painful, overwhelming, but I would not trade it for anything, because she is the reason. She is waking me up. I proposed today. She refused. She does not trust me. And why should she? I have given her no reason to. But I will. I will prove that I am capable of constancy, even if it takes years. Genevieve's eyes blurred with tears. She turned the page and found the final entry. Dated yesterday. I am leaving tomorrow. I cannot stay in a city where every street holds her memory, where every evening is a reminder of what I cannot have. She asked me to let her go, and I am trying. God, I am trying, but before I go, I need to ensure she is cared for. Not because I expect gratitude, not because I hope it will change her mind, but because I love her. And love means wanting her to be happy, even if that happiness does not include me. I have arranged everything, the trust, the annuity, the security she deserves. She will never know it came from me. And that is as it should be. Mother told me once that brief happiness is worth eternal emptiness. She was right. I have had these months of feeling truly alive, these months of knowing what it means to love. It is not enough, but it is more than I ever thought I would have. I will carry Genevieve with me forever, in every breath, every thought, every remaining year of this endless existence. And I will honor her choice, even though it destroys me, because that is what love is. Genevieve closed the journal. Tears streamed down her face. She had been so wrong. She had convinced herself that she was protecting them both, that walking away was the noble choice. But she had not been noble. She had been afraid, afraid of loving him and losing him, afraid of being a burden, afraid of the pain that inevitably comes with mortality. But Dominic had never asked her to be anything other than herself. He had never wanted to change her, to turn her, to make her into something she was not. He had simply wanted to love her, for as long as she would let him. And she had said no, not because she did not love him, but because she loved him too much. But love was not supposed to be safe. It was supposed to be brave. And she had been a coward. Genevieve stood. She wiped her eyes, and she made a decision. She would go to him before he left, before it was too late. She would tell him the truth, that she loved him, that she had always loved him, that her fear was not his burden to carry, and she would ask him to stay. Not because she was certain it would work, but because she was certain she could not live without trying. She grabbed her shawl, ran to the door, and stopped. Because standing on her doorstep, hand raised to knock, was Dominic. They stared at each other. For a moment, neither moved, neither spoke. Then Genevieve said, "You were leaving." "Yes," without saying goodbye. "I thought it would be easier." For whom? Dominic's expression was raw, broken. "For you." Genevieve shook her head. Tears fell freely now. "You fool. Nothing about this has been easy for me." "Then why?" "Because I was afraid, because I thought I was protecting us both. But I was wrong." Dominic stepped closer. His eyes searched hers. "What are you saying?" Genevieve took a breath. This was it. The moment. The choice. She could retreat, protect herself, let him go, or she could be brave. She chose bravery. "I am saying that I read your journal. Your mother brought it to me. And I am saying that I love you. I have always loved you. And I was a fool to think that fear was stronger than that." Dominic's breath caught. "Genevieve, let me finish, please." She stepped closer, close enough to touch him. "I cannot promise you forever. I cannot promise that I will not grow old while you stay young. I cannot promise that my death will not hurt you. I do not need those promises. But I can promise you this, for as long as I live, I will love you, truly, completely, with everything I am. And if that is enough for you, then—" She hesitated. Her voice broke. "Then please, do not leave." Dominic stood frozen, his eyes glistened, and then slowly he reached out. He took her hands in his. "It is enough," he whispered. "God, Genevieve, it is more than enough." He pulled her close, and for the first time they stood together without fear, without reservation, just two people who loved each other, despite the odds, despite the impossibilities, despite everything. Genevieve looked up at him. "Your mother told me something about how she and your father had 50 years, and that those 50 years were worth everything. She told me the same thing." "Do you believe it?" Dominic's hand cupped her face. His thumb brushed away her tears. "I believe that one day with you is worth a century without you. And if we have 60 years or 40 or even 20, I will count myself the luckiest man who ever lived, mortal or immortal." Genevieve's heart swelled. "Then ask me again." "Ask you what?" "What you asked me months ago." Dominic's eyes widened. Understanding dawned. He knelt, right there on her doorstep. He took her hand, and he asked, "Genevieve Aldridge, will you marry me?" Genevieve looked down at him, at this man who had waited, who had respected her choices, who had loved her enough to let her go, and she gave him the answer she should have given from the beginning. Yes. The word hung in the air between them. Yes. Dominic remained kneeling on her doorstep. His hand still held hers. He stared up at her as if he could not quite believe what he had heard. "Yes," he repeated. His voice was barely a whisper. Genevieve smiled through her tears. "Yes, I will marry you." Dominic rose slowly. He searched her face, looking for doubt, for hesitation, for any sign that she might change her mind again. But Genevieve's eyes were clear, certain. "Are you sure?" he asked. "Because if you have any uncertainty—" Genevieve placed her finger against his lips, silencing him. "I am sure. For the first time in months, I am completely sure." Dominic closed his eyes. Relief washed over him like a wave. When he opened them again, they were bright with unshed tears. "I thought I had lost you." "You did, for a while, but I found my way back." He pulled her close, held her as if she might disappear. Genevieve wrapped her arms around him and felt for the first time in so long that she was exactly where she belonged. They stood like that for several minutes, neither speaking, just holding each other. Finally, Dominic pulled back. He looked down at her. "We should go inside. People are watching." Genevieve glanced over his shoulder. Sure enough, curtains were twitching across the street, neighbors pretending not to stare. She laughed. It was a light sound, free. Let them watch. But she let him inside anyway. In the sitting room, they sat facing each other. Dominic still looked as if he expected her to vanish at any moment. "What changed your mind?" he asked. Genevieve took his hands. "I read your journal. Your mother brought it to me this morning." Dominic's eyes widened. "My journal." "Yes, and I realized something. I was not protecting us by saying no. I was protecting myself. From fear, from pain, from the risk of loving you and losing you. And now I understand that the risk is worth it. Because a life without you is not protection. It is just emptiness." Dominic brought her hands to his lips, kissed them gently. "I cannot promise I will not hurt you. Time will do that. Mortality will do that. I know. And I cannot promise that watching you age will not terrify me. Because it will. I know that too. But I can promise that I will cherish every moment, every day, every year we have together. And when the time comes, I will let you go with grace." Genevieve's throat tightened. "That is all I ask." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Genevieve said, "There is something I need to tell you." "What?" "When I marry you, I need you to promise me something." Dominic tensed slightly. "What is it?" "Promise me you will not try to turn me into a vampire." Dominic looked at her steadily. "I would never do that without your consent. Not even if I was dying. Not even if you could save me. Not even then, unless you asked me to." Genevieve relaxed. "Good, because I need to live my life as a human, to grow old naturally, to have a human death. That is important to me." "I understand. And when I do die, I need you to promise me something else. Anything. Promise me you will grieve, but then you will continue living. You will not fade away from despair. You will honor our time together by continuing to exist, by finding purpose, by not giving up." Dominic's jaw worked. It took him a moment to speak. "That is a heavy promise." "I know, but it is important to me. I cannot bear the thought of you ending your existence because of me." Dominic pulled her close again. He rested his forehead against hers. "I promise, I will live. For you. even when you are gone. Genevieve felt tears slip down her cheeks. Thank you. They held each other, and in that moment they made a pact, not just to love each other, but to love each other well. Honestly, without illusions about what the future would bring. It was the most honest promise either of them had ever made. 3 days later, Dominic came to Genevieve's house with news. I have spoken to my mother and to the priest at St. Mary's. They can marry us in 2 weeks. Genevieve looked up from the letter she was writing. 2 weeks, that is very soon. Too soon. No. Genevieve smiled. Not too soon at all. I thought we might have a small ceremony, just family and close friends. Nothing grand. That sounds perfect. Dominic hesitated. There is one thing you should know. When word gets out that we are marrying, society will talk. They already talk. Yes, but this will be different. A duke marrying a woman with no fortune, no title, a family name that was ruined. There will be those who say I am making a mistake, that you trapped me, that I have lost my mind. Genevieve set down her pen. And does that concern you? Not in the slightest, but I want you to be prepared. Some people will be cruel. Some will refuse to acknowledge you. Some will make your life difficult. Wow, Genevieve stood. She crossed to him, took his hands. I have already lost everything once. Society's approval means nothing to me. As long as I have you, I can face anything. Dominic's expression softened. You are braver than you know. I am learning. He kissed her forehead. Then let them talk. We will weather it together. The announcement appeared in the papers 2 days later. The Duke of Ravenscroft was to marry Miss Genevieve Aldridge. The wedding would be small, private, at St. Mary's Church. London exploded. In drawing rooms across the city, women gasped over their tea. Men raised eyebrows over their newspapers. Mothers clutched their pearls and wondered what the world was coming to. The Duke of Ravenscroft, the most eligible bachelor in England, the man who had eluded every trap for decades, marrying a nobody, a woman with no money, no connections, a fallen family name. It was scandalous, shocking, utterly incomprehensible. Some said Genevieve must have bewitched him. Others said the Duke had finally gone mad. A few whispered darker theories involving blackmail or scandal. But a small number of people, those who knew Dominic and Genevieve personally, simply smiled because they understood. This was not a scandal. It was a love story. The days before the wedding passed quickly. Genevieve spent them in a blur of preparation. There was little to do, no grand ball to plan, no elaborate dress to commission, just a simple ceremony and a quiet celebration afterward. But there were still decisions to make, invitations to send, arrangements to confirm. Marguerite helped with everything. She was thrilled, overjoyed. I knew it, she kept saying. I knew you belonged together. Octavia, Dominic's mother, visited Genevieve one afternoon. She came alone, sat in the small sitting room with tea she did not drink. I wanted to speak with you, Octavia said, before the wedding. Genevieve set down her cup. Of course, Badedisho. I told you before that I was once human, that I married a vampire, that I chose to be turned. Yes, Octavia's gaze was distant. What I did not tell you was why I am telling you this now. Why blind? Because I want you to understand that you do not have to make the same choice I did. Dominic will love you whether you remain human or not. He has already promised you that, and I believe him. I know. But I also want you to know that if you ever change your mind, if you ever decide you want immortality, he will give it to you, without hesitation, without question. Genevieve absorbed this. Are you saying I should consider it? No, I am saying the choice is yours, always. And no one, not even Dominic, should pressure you either way. He has not. Good. Octavia leaned forward. But I also need to tell you this. Being turned changed me. It gave me more time with the man I loved. But it also took things from me. The chance to grow old, to have children, to experience a natural end. Those losses are real. Even now, centuries later, I feel them. Do you regret it? Octavia considered. No, but I mourn it. There is a difference. Genevieve nodded slowly. Thank you for telling me. Octavia reached out and squeezed her hand. You are good for my son. You see him clearly, and you love him anyway. That is rare. He makes it easy. Octavia smiled. No, he does not. But you love him regardless, and that is why I know you are right for him. She left, and Genevieve sat alone, thinking about choices, about sacrifices, about the paths not taken. But when Dominic arrived that evening, she did not mention the conversation. She simply kissed him. and reminded herself that she had already made her choice, and it was the right one. Nepa. The wedding day arrived. It was a cool morning in early autumn. The sky was overcast, but there was no rain. Genevieve dressed in a simple gown, cream-colored, elegant but not elaborate. Marguerite helped her with her hair, pinned it up with small white flowers. "You look beautiful," Marguerite said. Her eyes were misty. "I look like myself." Exactly. They rode to the church in a small carriage, just the two of them. No grand procession, no fanfare. When they arrived, the church was nearly empty. A few guests, Dominic's mother, a handful of friends. And at the altar waiting was Dominic. He wore dark gray, his hair was brushed back, his expression was calm. But when Genevieve entered, his eyes lit up. He looked at her as if she were the only person in the world. Genevieve walked down the aisle, slowly, steadily, her hand on Marguerite's arm. When she reached Dominic, he took her hand. "You are breathtaking," he whispered. "You are biased," she whispered back. Undoubtedly. The ceremony was simple. The priest spoke of love, of commitment, of the sacred bond between two people. Dominic and Genevieve repeated their vows, their voices steady, clear. And when the priest said, "You may kiss your bride," Dominic leaned in and kissed Genevieve with a tenderness that made her heart ache. It was not a grand kiss, not dramatic or showy. It was quiet, real, full of promise. When they pulled apart, Genevieve saw tears on Dominic's cheeks. "I love you," he said softly. "I love you too." They turned to face the small gathering, husband and wife, and for the first time in a very long time, Genevieve felt completely at peace. Outside the church, a small crowd had gathered. Word had spread that the Duke was marrying today. Curious onlookers came to watch, to whisper, to judge. As Dominic and Genevieve stepped outside, the crowd fell silent. Then someone began to clap. It was an elderly woman, standing at the back. Her applause was slow, deliberate. One by one, others joined. Not everyone, but enough. The applause was not thunderous, but it was real. And as Dominic helped Genevieve into their carriage, she realized something. Not everyone would accept them. Not everyone would approve. But some would, and that was enough. So, they did not take a honeymoon. Dominic had suggested it, but Genevieve declined. "I do not need to go away," she said. "I just need to be with you." So they stayed in London. Dominic moved Genevieve into his estate. She brought her books, her small belongings, her quiet dignity. The household staff who had served Dominic for years welcomed her cautiously at first. But Genevieve was kind, respectful. She learned their names, asked about their families, treated them as people, not servants. Within a month, they adored her. Octavia visited often. She and Genevieve became close. They spoke of books, of music, of the challenges of loving men who lived outside the normal flow of time. And Dominic watched his wife navigate her new life with quiet grace. One evening, as they sat together in the library, Genevieve looked up from her book. "I have been thinking," she said, about my students. I do not want to stop teaching." Dominic set down his own book. "Of course not. Why would you?" "I thought perhaps now that I am a duchess it might be inappropriate." Dominic crossed to her, knelt beside her chair. "Genevieve, you are not required to become someone else just because you married me. If teaching brings you joy, then teach. I will support you." "Truly, Truly," Genevieve smiled. "Then I want to expand. I want to open a small school for girls who cannot afford tutors. Girls from families like mine was. Fallen families. Girls who need education but have no means." Dominic's eyes lit up. "That is a wonderful idea." "You think so?" "I think it is brilliant, and I think we should do it together." "Together. I will provide the building, the funding. You provide the vision, the teaching. We will make it real." Genevieve's throat tightened. "You would do that?" "I would do anything for you. Surely you know that by now." Genevieve pulled him close, kissed him. "I am beginning to." Within 6 months, the school opened. It was a small building in a modest part of London, nothing grand, but it was clean, bright, filled with books and desks and hope. Genevieve taught 3 days a week, literature, mathematics, French, history. Girls came. Slowly at first, then in greater numbers. Word spread that the Duchess of Ravencroft was offering free education to girls of limited means. Some families were suspicious, but others were grateful, desperate for their daughters to have opportunities they themselves had never had. Dominic visited the school often. He did not teach, but he listened to the girls read. He asked about their progress. He encouraged them, and he watched Genevieve transform. She was radiant when she taught, alive in a way that had nothing to do with him and everything to do with purpose. It reminded him why he loved her, not because she needed him, but because she did not. The years passed, 1, 2, 5, 10. Genevieve aged, slowly, gracefully, but visibly. At 29, there were faint lines at the corners of her eyes. At 33, a few strands of silver in her dark hair. At 37, her hands showed the first signs of age. Dominic noticed every change, every new line, every gray hair, and he treasured them because they were proof that she was living, truly living, not frozen in time like him, but moving through it, growing, changing. One night as they lay in bed, Genevieve touched his face. "You have not changed at all." "No. It is strange. I am aging, and you are not." "Does it bother you?" Genevieve considered. "Sometimes, when I look in the mirror and see the difference, but mostly no." "Why not?" "Because I chose this. I knew what I was accepting when I married you, and I have no regrets." Dominic pulled her close. "I wish I could age with you." "Do you buy?" "Yes, I wish I could grow old beside you, so that when the end comes, we could go together." Genevieve's eyes glistened. "That is a beautiful thought, but it is not our reality." "No. So we make the most of what we have." Dominic kissed her forehead. "Yes, we do." Sarah. The 15th year of their marriage began like all the others. Genevieve was 39. She still taught at the school, still laughed easily, still filled their home with light. But in the late summer, she began to cough. At first it was nothing, a small irritation. She dismissed it, but it did not go away. By autumn, the cough had worsened. She grew tired more easily, lost weight. Dominic insisted she see a physician. The physician examined her, listened to her chest, asked questions. When he was finished, his expression was grave. "I am sorry, Your Grace, but I believe it is consumption." Genevieve sat very still. "Are you certain?" "As certain as I can be. The signs are clear." Dominic, standing behind Genevieve's chair, felt the world tilt. "What can be done?" The physician sighed. "Rest, good food, fresh air. But in truth, there is no cure. The disease will progress." Genevieve thanked the physician, paid him, showed him out. When he was gone, she turned to Dominic. His face was ashen, his eyes wide with barely controlled panic. "Dominic, no, issue." His voice was sharp. "No, there has to be something. Another physician, a treatment, something." "You heard him. There is no cure." "Then I will turn you, now, tonight, before it progresses." Genevieve crossed to him, took his hands. They were shaking. "No. Genevieve, please. We made a promise. I would live as a human, to age as a human, die as a human. That was before I knew exactly how I would die, yes, but the promise still stands." Dominic pulled his hands away. He turned from her. His shoulders were rigid. "I cannot watch you die." "Yes, you can, because you promised me you would." Dominic spun around. His eyes were wet. "You do not want to live." "I want to live my life, not an endless existence. There is a difference." Genevieve stepped closer. She cupped his face in her hands. "I know, and I love you for it. But this is my choice, and I am asking you to respect it." Dominic's face crumpled. He pulled her into his arms, held her so tightly she could barely breathe. "I cannot lose you," he whispered. "Not yet. Not like this. You are not losing me yet. I am still here." "For how long?" "I do not know, but however long it is, I want to spend it living. Not hiding, not mourning what is to come. Living." Dominic buried his face in her hair, and for the first time since she had known him, he wept. Great shaking sobs that tore through him. All the fear he had been holding, all the pain, all the desperate, helpless love. Genevieve held him, stroked his hair, let him grieve for what was coming. And when his tears finally subsided, she whispered, "I need you to be strong for me. Can you do that?" Dominic pulled back, wiped his eyes, nodded. "Yes, I can do that." "Good, because I am going to need you in the days ahead." Dominic took her hands, kissed them. "I will be here, every moment, every day. I will not leave your side." "I know." They stood together. Two people facing the inevitable. Not with false hope, not with denial, but with clear-eyed acceptance and a love that made even mortality bearable. The months that followed were both beautiful and terrible. Genevieve's condition worsened. Slowly, the cough became constant. She grew thinner, weaker. There were days when she could not leave bed, but there were also good days. Days when the sun was warm and the pain was manageable. Days when she could sit in the garden, read to the students who came to visit, laugh with Dominic over some small, ordinary thing. On those days, they pretended the illness did not exist. They spoke of books, of memories, of the life they had built together. Dominic was true to his word. He never left her side. He carried her when she could not walk. He read to her when she was too tired to read herself. He held her through the long nights when the coughing kept her awake. And he never not once mentioned turning her again. He had made a promise, and he kept it. True. In the spring when Genevieve turned 39, they knew the end was near. She was bedridden now. The coughing had become violent, painful. She struggled to breathe. Octavia came to visit. She sat beside Genevieve's bed, held her hand. "I am sorry," Octavia said quietly. Genevieve managed a weak smile. "For what?" "That you have to go through this, that there is no other way." "There is another way. I simply chose not to take it." "Do you regret that choice?" Genevieve looked across the room. Dominic was standing by the window, his back to them, his shoulders tense. "No," Genevieve said. "I do not regret it. This is how it was meant to be." Octavia squeezed her hand. "You are very brave." "I am very tired. There is a difference." Octavia smiled sadly. "Take care of my son after you are gone." "I cannot do that. I will not be here." "You will be. In his heart, in his memory, you will be with him always." Genevieve's eyes filled with tears. "I hope so." Octavia leaned down, kissed her forehead. "Thank you for loving him, for showing him what it means to truly live." She left, and Genevieve was alone with Dominic. He came to the bed, sat beside her, took her hand. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Truthfully." "Always truthfully." "Like I am running out of time." Dominic's jaw tightened, but his voice remained steady. "What do you need? Just you. Just this." They sat in silence for a long time, holding hands, listening to the sound of her labored breathing. Finally, Genevieve spoke. "Dominic." "Yes, Imo. Do you remember what you promised me about living after I am gone?" "Yes." "I need you to keep that promise. I need to know that my death will not destroy you. It will not destroy me, but it will change me. I know, but you will survive it. You will find purpose again. You will continue." Dominic brought her hand to his lips. "I will try my it. That is all I ask." 3 days later, Genevieve woke in the night. The room was dark. Dominic was beside her, asleep in the chair. She watched him for a moment. His face was peaceful, younger in sleep, beautiful. She did not want to wake him, but she knew this was the end. "Dominic," she whispered. His eyes opened immediately. He leaned forward. "I am here." "I know." She smiled faintly. "You are always here. What do you need?" "Nothing. I just wanted to see you." Dominic took her hand. He could feel how weak she was, how her breathing had changed, become shallow, uneven. He knew what this meant. "Genevieve." "Shh, do not say anything. Just listen." He nodded. Genevieve took a shaky breath. "These 15 years with you have been the best of my life. You gave me love, purpose, a home. I could not have asked for more. You deserved more." "No, I deserved exactly this, and I am grateful for every moment." Dominic's vision blurred, but he did not look away. Genevieve's voice was getting weaker. "Promise me something. Anything. Promise me you will not forget how to live, how to feel, how to love." "I promise." "Good." She closed her eyes, opened them again. "And promise me you will keep the school open. For the girls. They need it." "I promise." "Thank you." Her breathing became more labored. Dominic felt panic rising, but he forced it down. She needed him to be calm, strong. "Genevieve, I love you," he said. His voice broke. "I will love you forever." She smiled. A real smile. Peaceful. "I know, and I will love you too, even when I am gone." "You will never be one, not truly." "No, I will be here." She touched his chest, over his heart. "Always." Her hand fell back to the bed. Her eyes closed. Her breathing slowed. Dominic held her hand, stroked her hair, whispered words of love and comfort. And in the quiet hours before dawn, Genevieve Ravencroft took her last breath. The funeral was small, private. just as Genevieve would have wanted. She was buried in the family plot, beneath an old oak tree. Dominic stood at the grave long after everyone else had left, staring at the freshly turned earth. He felt hollowed out, empty, as if someone had reached inside him and removed something vital. But he did not break. He did not fade, because he had made a promise, and he would keep it. Damn. In the days that followed, Dominic returned to the estate. He went through Genevieve's things, her books, her letters, her small treasures, and he found something, tucked inside her journal, a letter, in her handwriting, written just days before her death. My dearest Dominic, if you are reading this, then I am gone, and you are still here, still living, as you promised. I know these days will be hard. I know you will grieve, but I also know you will continue, because that is who you are, a man of your word. I want you to know that I do not regret a single day we spent together. Not one in. Even knowing how it would end, I would choose you again, 1,000 times. You gave me 15 years of happiness, of purpose, of love, deeper than I ever thought possible. And in return, I hope I gave you something too. I hope I taught you that life, even finite life, is worth living fully. Do not carry guilt. Do not wonder if you could have saved me. You honored my choices. You respected my wishes. You loved me the way I needed to be loved. And now I need you to do one more thing. Find joy again, not to replace me, but to honor the time we had. Live, love, feel. Do not close yourself off. You have centuries ahead of you. Spend them well, for both of us. I will be waiting for you, somewhere, somehow. And when your time comes, whenever that may be, I will be there to greet you. Until then, live. All my love, forever yours, Genevieve. Dominic read the letter 3 times. Then he carefully folded it, placed it in his breast pocket, over his heart. And for the first time since she had died, he felt something other than pain. He felt purpose. She was right. She had always been right. It was time to live again. The school became Dominic's focus. He expanded it. From 1 building to 3, he hired more teachers. He funded scholarships. He ensured that hundreds of girls like Genevieve had been received the education they deserved. He kept Genevieve's classroom exactly as she had left it. Her desk, her books, the small vase she had always filled with flowers. Every week he placed fresh white roses in that vase. He taught there sometimes. History, literature. The girls loved him, but they also sensed something in him, a quiet sadness that never quite left. He never remarried, never courted. When people asked why, he simply said, I had my great love. One was enough. The years passed. 10, 20, 30. Dominic aged not in body but in spirit. His eyes became deeper. His smile, when it came, was tinged with memory. Octavia visited him often. She worried, but Dominic assured her he was well. He was living, keeping his promise. And he was, in his own way. 30 years after Genevieve's death, on a quiet evening in autumn, Dominic sat in his library. Genevieve's portrait hung above the fireplace. He had commissioned it years ago. From memory, the artist had captured her perfectly. The gray eyes, the quiet strength, the slight smile. Dominic looked at the portrait, and he spoke aloud. I kept my promise. I lived. I grieved. But I did not give up. The portrait, of course, did not answer, but Dominic felt her presence anyway. Warm, comforting, real. The school thrives. Hundreds of girls have passed through its doors. They carry your legacy forward. He reached into his pocket, pulled out the letter, unfolded it one more time. Thank you, he whispered, for 15 years, for teaching me what love is, for showing me that a finite life can be more meaningful than an infinite one. He carefully refolded the letter, placed it in a small wooden box on his desk. Beside it, he placed one of the white roses from Genevieve's classroom. And then he sat down, opened a book, and began to read. Outside, the city moved on. Time continued its endless march. But inside that library, in the quiet space between memory and present, Genevieve and Dominic existed together still. Not in the same world, not in the same time, but connected, always, by a love that had defied mortality, not by conquering death, but by accepting it and choosing to love anyway. Decades later, when Dominic had lived long enough, when the weight of years finally grew too heavy, when he was ready to rest, he made his final arrangements. He left the school to a board of trustees, ensured it would continue in perpetuity, funded scholarships in Genevieve's name, and he requested to be buried beside her. beneath the oak tree. When he passed, there were few mourners. He had outlived most who knew him, but the school closed for one day, and hundreds of women came to pay their respects, to honor the Duke who had kept his wife's dream alive. They placed white roses on both graves, and they told stories about the Duchess who had taught them, about the Duke who had loved her enough to let her be herself. The headstones stood side by side, simple, elegant. Genevieve Ravencroft, beloved wife, teacher, friend, 1802 to 1841. Dominic Ravencroft, Duke of Ravencroft, beloved husband, 1662 to 1871, reunited at last. And beneath the oak tree, two souls rested, together again, after a separation that had lasted decades but had never truly parted them. Because love, real love, does not end with death. It transforms, it endures, it becomes part of the fabric of the world. And in the halls of the school they built together, in the lives of the girls they helped, in the stories that would be told for generations, Genevieve and Dominic lived on. Not as Duke and commoner, not as vampire and human, but as two people who had loved each other completely, imperfectly, courageously. And that love had been enough, more than enough. It had been everything.